All right, Snapshots podcast followers, welcome to another edition of Snapshots, a hockey development podcast. I'm Andrew Trimble, coming with you today here, brought to you by Mr. Lemon Wax, the finest wax in hockey. It's an American-made hand-poured wax that gives you the exact amount of tact and grip that you need to develop elite hands. Grip it and rip it with Mr. Lemon Stick Wax. Also, brought to you by the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Join a huddle today and become part of the Fellowship. Fellowship of Christian Athletes is a nationwide organization that forms groups, interacts with organizations, and young Christians who want to grow their faith in a fun setting. Now, Snapshots Hockey Podcast. We are coming to you today and bringing forth a controversial topic. Coaches and parents who constantly argue with officials. We see this all the time. The ref isn't the problem. Let me tell you that right off the bat. The ref is not the problem. We all make mistakes. And arguing with officials only hurts your players and your player development. Have you ever watched a coach spend more time yelling at officials than actually coaching players? I've seen it at all levels. That's for sure. Have you ever sat near a parent who argued every call for an entire game? The impact of arguing with officials on players, teams, and development is significant. So it's important that when you recognize this behavior, you take action and distance yourself from this type of negative reinforcement, this type of negative energy influencing your bench, your team culture. Players are always watching. They learn how adults handle adversity, how adults respond to things that don't go their way, and whether accountability matters. When coaches and parents, blame officials, the players learn to blame others instead of taking ownership and being accountable. Example, you have a missed assignment by the ref, and you hear a blown offside or missed icing. You hear the bench erupt. A blown offside, if it's a 2-on-1, that's one thing. But if it's, a tag up situation where you didn't go all the way, or maybe it's a 5-on-5 situation where they're entering the zone and one person is slightly offside, 9 times out of 10, these don't negatively impact the game. But they're mistakes that happen frequently. And you have officials at all different levels officiating these games. You have kids who are just starting out. You have gentlemen who may be retired and doing it for a little extra spending cash or get some good exercise. You have people who it's their primary occupation, where they have to travel to 4 or 5 different rinks in a given weekend or on a given day. And they're using this money. They're an essential part of the game, but they're using this money to, pay for their housing, pay for their kids' expenses. We're a big ecosystem in hockey. It's important that we always support one another. My experience with officials has come from my family. My grandfather, Dick Trimble, was the head of the off-ice officials for the New Jersey Devils for 25 years. He was also ran the officiating in the Atlantic District for a long time. And part of his contributions helped him to get a Lifetime Achievement Award with the Metropolitan Junior Hockey League and the Atlantic Youth Hockey League. So he was intimately involved with developing officials, working with officials to improve their skills and their decision-making on the ice. And then when my dad finished college, my grandpa tried to get him involved in that. And I heard he only officiated a handful of games because he was at the old Brick Forum in Bricktown, New Jersey. And somebody blew a call. And this was the legend I hear. He blew a call and a parent yelled at him, keep making the right calls there, rabbit ears. And I think he took it really personal. And that was his sign to move on to just coaching. But so these decisions, these things that you say during a game, they do impact people on a personal level, but also they impact the ability to have games for all of our kids. Because if we have a shortage of officials, games don't get played, or they get even worse when you only have one official be able to do them. Officials are human. Missed calls happen. Coaches miss line changes. Players miss passes. Parents make mistakes. Parents go to the wrong rink. Organizations double book. Rink managers forget an ice cut. It happens. We don't scream at our coaches for when they do too many men on the ice. So why would we blame the officials for making a simple mistake? Nobody's perfect. Officials aren't trying to ruin the game. I can guarantee you that. Most of the officials I've met in my 20, 30 years, whatever it is, coaching, are good people. Sometimes, everybody has on days and off days. That's to be understood, but they're not trying to ruin your game or trying to ruin your kid's experience. They're trying to manage a fast-paced, difficult game where safety is a priority on their behalf. The damage it does to the team culture. Now, this is a little bit different. Everybody kind of thinks it's funny to be up in the stands, maybe, call somebody rabbit ears or complain about the blown off sides or icing. That's one thing. But if the coach is constantly doing it, it really takes away at the team culture. Our Wolves program was in the EHL and the EHL Premier for 11 seasons. There were some great coaches we coached with and against. One organization, though, in particular, it was either like they won the game or the officials cost them the game. And I just imagine being in that locker room when your coach is absolutely losing his mind over basic plays or basic calls. In this organization, one time, I had the opposing coach on the other bench screaming that the referee owed him 2 goals because he waved off 2 goals. One, it hit the bench, the puck did, before it went into the net, so it was a blown play. And the other one hit the crossbar, so it never even went in the net. So, what are you doing, coach? Get a clue. The official didn't blow anything. He called the right game, and you're going to criticize him for calling the right game? Give me a break. All right, when adults constantly argue, it brings negative energy, it brings a sense of entitlement, and it's a distraction. When your coach is just constantly harping on those officials, it's a distraction on the bench. I want to focus on the game. I want to focus on communicating with my players, getting the right guys on the ice, giving them positive feedback. And if your coach is constantly arguing at the referee or linesman, think about what that is telling to your kid. He's not coaching your kids. He's observing the officials. Instead of asking, what can I do better, it's a focus on, why didn't the ref call that? There's a lack of accountability, and there's an excuse making built into that. What successful coaches do instead? I implore you to go on YouTube and look up how coaches react to adversity at the highest levels. I remember seeing a Brad Stevens, the former coach with the Boston Celtics. He was a college coach, I believe, one of those small schools out west. And there was a buzzer beater, but there was a close to buzzer beater, but they left a couple seconds on the clock, the opposing team, and they nailed a critical field goal that led to them taking the lead late in the game. And his reaction on the bench wasn't throwing his hands up, wasn't pointing fingers. He took that information in, he went to his board, he called a timeout, and they were able to get a field goal right after that because he was calm, cool, collected under pressure. If you look at some of the best coaches in the history of the National Hockey League, they're some of the most even-tempered people that you could interact with. Occasionally, they'll see something critical in a critical part of the game, and they'll react to it. They'll bring the official over. They'll have some questions. They'll get clarification. But more often than not, they're thinking about the next play, not the play that just happened. Advice for parents. What should parents do? In the stands, cheer for effort. Support the team. Let the officials do their job. At every level of hockey, I've seen over the course of my career, parents be kicked out from the stands. I remember our championship game this year at the 10U level. Wolves played Keene in the Tier 2 New Hampshire State Championship. And we had beat Keene in the previous matchup. We scored the first goal. Then Keene started to have some success, and we were really gassed. And they started to really snowball. And they got ahead. And our guys were playing really hard, but the Keene parents were still just hammering the officials. Even though they're up by 2 or 3 goals at a critical part of the game, instead of cheering their kids on, instead of rooting positively for their organization, they were hammering the refs. Why are you blowing this? And the official in a championship game at 10U went over to that section of fans and said, "You're another comment away from being kicked out. Control yourself, otherwise I'm going to have to make a decision." Something to that extent. And it got a little bit better, but I I scratched my head. They're in a championship game, an amazing moment for their kids to have some real on-ice success. And they got a lead. And all they're doing is hammering officials on missed calls for trips or falls. I mean, it's 10U. Kids bump into each other. Kids trip over the blue line. It happens all the time. It doesn't mean every penalty or every time a kid trips, it's a penalty. Get a dose of reality, parents. Come on. Your child may forget the score, but they'll remember how you acted. Long term, the damage you do to your kids is you create a society of people who repeat these same types of activities over and over. They lack accountability. They make excuses. They point fingers. I want to have athletes that when they finish playing for me, they say, well, I learned a lot from coach. I learned how to be a better hockey player. And, I learned that I had to battle through some adversity and apply that to my life and my game. That's important. Officials are going to miss calls. Coaches will make mistakes. Players will make mistakes. The teams that grow the most aren't the ones looking for someone to blame. They're the ones looking for ways to improve. So remember that. Control what you can control. Let everyone else do their job. We'll see you next week on Snapshots. My name's Andrew Trimble. Remember to check out each week. This drops on either Tuesday or Wednesday, your newest episode of Snapshots. And check us out online on my Substack, the Hockey Development Hub. Check out www.scoringconcepts.com or the AI Hockey Advisor, or even Amazon to get some of the books that I have on these many, many topics concerning the greatest game in the world, ice hockey. Thanks for tuning in.